There are people who didn't just smuggle drugs, they smuggled ideas through borders. They didn't just see boundaries the way governments did. They saw them as soft edges, places to exploit, corridors to control. They weren't just traffickers, they were logisticians, architects, designers of systems beneath systems. This is the story of 5 drug lords who used geography, war, policy gaps, and silence to build empires that rivaled states, and in some cases, replaced them. The world is shaped by systems most people never see. They're built into our borders, our maps, and our daily movements, quietly guiding everything that we do. This is Smart World Theory, where we decode the hidden logic of how the world really moves. Let's begin with Pablo Escobar. Everyone knows the myth, the Robin Hood of Medellin, the kingpin who flooded America with cocaine. But Escobar wasn't just a trafficker, he was a student of the terrain. He understood that Colombia's natural geography, with mountains, rivers, and ungoverned jungles, offered the perfect hiding places and runways for a growing global empire. By the mid-1980s, Escobar's cartel was earning over $400 million a week. Planes landed on private ranches. Submarines move across the Caribbean. Bribes flow more predictably than rainfall. His power was so complete, he got elected to Congress while simultaneously orchestrating assassinations of those who opposed him. But Escobar's most dangerous skill wasn't just violence, it was substitution. In places where the state failed to provide schools, jobs, and food, he filled the gap. He gave away homes, he funded churches, he built soccer fields. To the barrios, he wasn't a criminal, he was the system. Across the world in Harlem, another empire was forming, quieter and more calculated. Frank Lucas understood the American supply chain like few others. In the late 1960s and early 70s, while the US was fighting in Vietnam, Lucas went to Southeast Asia not for politics, but for product. In the hills of the Golden Triangle, he built direct connections to heroin producers, cutting out the Italian mafia entirely. He imported the heroin himself, allegedly using US military planes, and according to him, sometimes the coffins of fallen soldiers. Blue Magic, his branded product, was purer and cheaper than anything else on the street. Lucas wasn't flashy. He wore tailored suits, stayed low, watched the movement of the NYPD like a strategist. For years, no one suspected him. But like Escobar, his real insight was that weakness in the system could be engineered into opportunity. A war overseas, corruption at home, a neglected community, all became parts of a new underground logistics map. But if Lucas moved quietly, Griselda Blanco ruled loudly. Before Escobar became famous, Blanco was already moving tons of cocaine from Colombia to Miami. In the 1970s and early 80s, she was the blueprint. She pioneered the use of human couriers. Women, children, pregnant mules, people less likely to be searched at airports. She didn't use boats or planes exclusively. She used bodies. Blanco understood that if drugs moved through people, people could pass through borders undetected. And if they were caught, she had hundreds more. She was brutal. Known as La Madrina, the godmother, she orchestrated killings like clockwork. Miami during her reign was chaos. Public shootouts, assassins on motorcycles. She didn't just move the product, she weaponized the whole city. Yet she stayed largely untouched for years. Why? Because her innovation wasn't just in tactics, it was in timing. She created a market before most people realized it existed, and then she defended it with the kind of fear even other cartels respected. Meanwhile, on the opposite coast of the United States, another name was emerging: Freeway Rick Ross. Not a myth, not a rapper, but a real person who, at his peak, was moving $3 million worth of crack cocaine per day in Los Angeles. Ross wasn't an international kingpin. He didn't fly to Asia or Colombia, but he ran a domestic empire that fed off something far more dangerous than foreign supply: US neglect. In the 1980s, LA was a powder keg. Gang wars, economic collapse, broken public services. Ross found his opportunity not in high places, but in the cracks. He started small, learned from suppliers, and scaled with speed. The man who sold crack to half of South Central got his cocaine from a Nicaraguan supplier who in turn was funneling money back to the CIA-funded Contra rebels in Latin America. In other words, Rick Ross' empire was unintentionally helping fund US foreign policy. He didn't know it at first, but when the truth came out, it confirmed something deeper: that global systems don't always move in straight lines. Sometimes a local corner boy is connected to the State Department and no one even realizes it. And then there's Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. While the others collapsed, got caught, or retired, El Chapo rose quietly through the 1990s and 2000s. He wasn't political like Escobar, he wasn't flamboyant like Blanco, he was first and foremost operational, a systems builder. El Chapo turned the Sinaloa cartel to one of the most sophisticated supply chains in the world, not just in Mexico to the US, but into Europe, West Africa, and even Asia. He used tunnels under the border, complete with rails and lights. He used shipping ports, airports, rail lines, and even commercial produce exporters. When one route got shut down, 5 more were already active. He escaped prison twice. The second time, his men dug a mile-long tunnel under the floor of his shower cell. But what made El Chapo truly dangerous was his decentralization. His lieutenants could operate independently. His network had redundancy, and like any well-run global enterprise, it didn't need him to survive. Even today, though captured, the Sinaloa cartel continues, because the system wasn't built around a man, it was built around movement. Each of these 5 traffickers exploited different weak points in the world's infrastructure. Escobar used terrain and poverty, Lucas used war and corruption, Blanco used gender assumptions and air travel, Ross used policy blind spots and urban decay, and El Chapo used every technology available, from GPS to shipping routes to tunnel boring machines. What links all of them isn't just drugs, it's vision. They saw the holes in the map, and where others saw barriers, they saw flow. These were not just stories of crime. They were stories of logistics, geography, and unmet needs. They remind us that the line between legal and illegal isn't always about morality. Sometimes it's about access. Who gets to move? Who gets stopped? Who controls the corridor? Smugglers don't think in terms of countries, they think in terms of corridors, of margins, of enforcement delays, and sensor blind spots. And sometimes they think faster than the systems designed to stop them can think. Because if you want to understand power in the modern world, you can't just study presidents and policies. You have to study the people who learn to move without permission. And then ask yourself, why did the system allow it?